Hey, I think that's working. In theory, it's working. Oh my goodness, the show's no longer starting soon. I mean, the show's like, it's like starting now, so I can take the starting soon, sign off, and I can push this off and say hi. Welcome to another live taping of Podcast Pontifications. I am and shall be your host, Evo Terra. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday morning. Got a fun show planned for you. Interesting episode today. The topic, the title, in case you missed it, is that but let's just start over again. It is this: podcasting with a purpose, even if it's your own. Not your own podcast, your own purpose. You understand. That is the topic of conversation today. And again, thank you very much for joining me as we do this. This was fun for a variety of reasons, but mostly because of the fun answers that I got when I asked this question. So it was cool. I asked it very late last night, so if you didn't get a chance to answer, okay, my fault for going so late. But I had a very late day, and I had 3 ideas for today's show and one won. Anyhow, I asked very late a question on Twitter, and I got responses. I also put the question in the Advancing Podcasting community at advancingpodcasting.xyz, which you're a member of, right? You're already on Advancing Podcasting at XYZ, right? Surely you are. You should be if you're not. Oh, I didn't turn the chat room on, so if you've been chatting to me, I didn't see it. Hang on. Chat room coming on right now. Apologies for that. So, again, if you said something in the chat room, I missed it. Say something again, and I'll be better. Sorry about that. I was delayed in getting that done. Hey, also, if you're just now joining, you're wondering, this is the podcast? No, this is not the podcast. This is the live recording of said podcast. Everything you're hearing right now and shall hear for the next 2 or 3 minutes will not be preserved for all eternity in podcast glory and form. It's just, this is the live taping. So the real deal podcast, if you want to get that, that'll be posted at 10 o'clock today. If you are watching this on a replay, remember you're watching a replay of the live stream. If there are glitches and drops in a live stream, it's a live stream. C'est la vie. But I can promise you that the final product, which is available at podcastpontifications.com in both audio and video and thirdly text form, I said both, in 3 different forms, all that will be available. So if you ever run into one of these live streams, it gets glitchy and weird, and you're thinking, oh, I missed it. You didn't miss it. You missed the live taping of it. The vast majority of people consume it after the live taping is done, and it's been cleaned up and polished and all those various things. Podcastpontifications.com is where you'll go to get that. Okay. I'm going to hit refresh because I don't think that my Restream app has refreshed because it was showing a kind of wonky thing there. Make sure it's coming back live. Yeah, it looks much better that way. So, all right. So I think we're good to go on all of my technical things. Let's do the cold open test read, shall we? Go away, Grammarly for Safari. I don't know why you will never stay consistently on. Oof. All right, here is, oh, you know what I didn't do also? I see what I didn't do also. I didn't change the line spacing, so I can't see anything. Oh, I know one more thing I didn't do either. Hang on, I got all sorts of things I got to do. Again, behind-the-scenes stuff. Format, line and paragraph spacing, add a space after paragraph. Oh, alive, I can see it now. Second thing I have to do is, hey, Google, set the temperature to 25 for 15 minutes. That way, it doesn't kick on and annoy me in a minute. So, she has done that. As I was saying, here's the cold open. Why do you podcast? Yes, plenty of selfish reasons are important, if only to keep you podcasting. But does it go deeper than that? I asked the community and was blown away by the responses I received. Simple little cold open. All right, I think that works. If you're going to chat to me now, I'm not going to see it until I get back, until I'm done. So give this about 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes, and I'll come back and see your chats over there. Oh, I also don't have QuickTime running. Goodness gracious. Look at all the things I didn't do because I was too busy chatting with people. I blame Matt and Dawn. Okay, new audio recording. If your name is Matt and Dawn, you have been blamed. You know you did it. Not a problem. All right. Here we go. Audio recording. Here we go. Video recording. Good morning, Allie. Why do you podcast? Yes, plenty of selfish reasons are important, if only to keep you podcasting. But does it go deeper than that? I asked the community and was blown away by the responses I received. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. What bigger mission does your podcast plug into? What lofty goal are you trying to achieve with your podcast? What higher purpose are you trying to serve with your podcast? The inspiration for today's episode comes from a friend of mine, Pam Slim, an amazing community builder and business leader from right here in the Phoenix area. She said that on stage, or asked that question on stage recently, and the idea of a bigger mission that your podcast might plug into or track back to really struck me. And stuck with me, actually. Which is kind of weird because I actively rail against things like mission statements for businesses. Maybe that's because I'm cynical, and I've typically found that the words that are written down from a company on a mission statement have very little to do with the actual business practices that business practice does. But again, I recognize that's a very cynical take. So I've been pondering Pam's question for some time now. What bigger purpose does a podcast plug into? And I've been thinking about that for like the 20-odd podcasts I've done in the 17 years I've been podcasting. And if I'm honest, a lot of them were purpose-free. Yep. Now, some of them actually came into their purpose over time, and it was the rare few, like this show, for example, that actually started life with a stated purpose in mind. Now, not that there's any rule that says your show has to have a purpose. Again, many of my shows did not, and all of them were fun to do for at least a time. So I was curious about this. So I sent out a tweet last night asking for podcasters to share their raison d'etre, if you will, for their show. And I got a lot of replies, and thank you all very much for your replies. In the interest of time, I'm just going to share some select ones on the program today. Fellow Phoenix podcast person Garrett Godfrey says, on Good Patron, that's his show, I explore how we can better support the bands and musicians we love. That's a very nice purpose. Supporting musicians, independent musicians specifically, is a very good thing to do. Ex-Phoenix podcaster, Dr. Carrie Gillen she has a show called Vocal Fries. She says it exists to highlight the fact that judging language is judging humans in racist, sexist, classist ways, and more. That's pretty amazing, yeah. I also heard from Susan, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Susan, I apologize. Susan Nishreden. She said, over 80% of the people are disengaged in the workplace. In Life Beyond the Numbers, that's her shows, conversations are about how to have a more fulfilling work life. Wow, that's a cool thing to do. Amanda Kendall says that her podcast, the Thoughtful Travel Podcast, connects to her whole life and career purpose, which is sharing the value of travel as a tool both for personal growth and to make the world a better place. I know many travelers who feel the same way. Martha Lutton of the podcast Squanderlust says her show's purpose is to help people overcome the fear and shame around how they have managed their money so they can face where they are now and change it for the better. Letting people know that it's okay. That's great. Now, beyond Twitter, there were several more responses, but I also reached out to the fellow members of the Advancing Podcasting community, which you can join for free, by the way, advancingpodcasting.xyz, and I got a few answers. Neil Headley of the Snooze Button podcast, he was the first one to reply. His show is there not just to help people get better sleep, and Neil hasn't been able to sleep since he was like 6 years old, but it's an effort, he says, to save people from the hucksters who would capitalize on ignorance by pushing ridiculous solutions that don't actually help people. Skepticism coming out. I love it. We'll stay there for a minute because Gary Arndt replied, his show, Everything Everywhere, he says that he's trying to combat ignorance with his show. Too many people just don't know much about the world around them, how it works, and how it all came to be. Hence the show, Everything Everywhere. And I was really taken by the answer that Andrew Clues from the Motoring Podcast provided. He said, our podcast wasn't started for any noble or higher reason than no one else was doing a UK-centric motoring news curated show. Okay, however, he goes on and says, we have found ourselves fighting misinformation, a lack of understanding for subjects such as autonomous vehicles, AI in cars, electric cars, whatever. I wouldn't, Andrew goes on to say, for 1 minute pretend to be doing it for the greater good or something, but factually poor reporting does irk me. Now, that's an incredibly self-aware observation, Andrew, and a nice way to, I think, bring us back full circle on this topic. Maybe your show doesn't connect with a bigger mission or a lofty goal or a higher purpose. Maybe not, but maybe it does. Maybe, like Andrew, you figure out that there is something there. You discover it as you go along and podcast. The trick therein is finding that higher goal, that higher purpose, that mission that's out there. The trick is then elucidating that succinctly and then making sure that becomes your North Star as both you and your podcast progress down the road. Looking back on things, I think it's a lot easier. If I look back at my own history of podcasting, I think it's a lot easier to build a shared experience for your listeners and a sense of community amongst you and your listeners if, in fact, the podcast does have a bigger mission at stake. Again, not required to do that. I'm just saying it might be a little bit easier. So, if that's important to you, building that shared experience, having a sense of community around your podcast, maybe look at the mission, the higher purpose, the goal you're trying to achieve with the show. Let's do a quick boostagram. A big thanks to James Cridland from Podland and Pod News and all the other poddy type things that James does. He sent me a boostagram on Fountain, great little app. And his message was, I'm happy. Oh, by the way, James, I'm happy to test with you any single time because he simply said it's nice to see, to do testing. He didn't say anything specifically. He just said he was testing the process, and I'm happy to test with people much like that. Welcome to the world of value for value in apps. It's very nice to see boosts from the new podcast apps like Fountain. You can find more of those podcast apps at newpodcastapps.com. And please visit podcastpontifications.com/value for value for ways you can support me and my mission of making podcasting better for podcasters and for listeners alike. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers. Stopped the video. Stopped the audio. And hey, Evo, says Betty Danowitz. Hello. That's it. That was the live stream. If you are just now tuning in, you missed it. And while you could back up 14 minutes and watch the whole live stream, why would you do that? Honestly, live streams are glitchy. If you hang out for about 2 hours and 47 minutes, the entire episode will be posted at podcastpontifications.com. That means audio that's corrected and cleaned up and nice, as well as text. I will take every single word that I just said, and I will rewrite it so that it reads nicely for your eyeballs. I think that's part of making podcasting better, so it's what I do since my mission is making podcasting better. Right, so I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate all of you sharing the show when you can. Seeing a little bit of growth, which is always a nice thing. That makes me happy. So yeah, tomorrow, more content coming up. I've got a busy day today. I hope you have a good day today. So I shall now bid you all adieu. See you tomorrow. Bye. achieve with the show. Let's do a quick boostagram.